Our next guest, he is the representative from the 1st Congressional District of Florida. He serves on the House Armed Services Committee with me, respected member. He also serves on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And importantly, this morning, because we're going to focus on those who have defended our country, our veterans, no one is more qualified to speak to this. He is the chairman of the House Committee on Veteran Affairs. I'm speaking of my friend and a tremendous leader in the House of Representatives, Jeff Miller. Chairman Miller, welcome. Welcome to the John Fredricks Show.
Good morning, Scott. It's great to be with you from a rainy panhandle of Florida this morning.
Well, it's actually pretty nice here and crisp, but look, as a former Floridian, I appreciate your leadership. I really do. Tell us a bit about your district and why the military is important to you as well.
Well, and talking about the folks up in your part of the world in Hampton Roads and Naval Air Station Norfolk, all of those that fly in airplanes and helicopters probably spent some time in my district at one point or another. We're home to Naval Air Station Pensacola, Naval Air Station Whitingfield, where all of our naval helicopter pilots get their training, and quite a few of the fixed-wing pilots do as well. I also have Eglin Air Force Base, the largest Air Force base in the world, and home to the 7th Special Forces Group, the Green Berets. So we are blessed to every day witness the young men and women that wear the uniform of this nation.
I really share that. I'm the son of an Iwo Jima veteran. My dad's still doing great at 90 years old. In fact, he may be listening to this via the web. But we really are grateful to our men and women in uniform. They've been through so much, and their families. Our Blue Star families have been through so much. Jeff, one of the reasons I asked you to come on the show this morning, in fact, I'm delighted that you accepted, and I shamelessly, you remember on the House floor, I threw out...
On the floor of the House.
Yes, and I said, now, Jeff, listen, if it takes us going turkey hunting in the spring, I'll do that because I know you love hunting. And you're an accomplished hunter, and look, I'd still like to do that. But the reason that I asked you to come on this morning is to provide some insight as to what is taking place at the VA, and just your perspective on this, because the town hall, I held one on Saturday. Any person could come, any person could ask a question. I really enjoyed it, a conversation with the district, but several lined up and said, Scott, listen, this is not good. And the backlog, and I've dealt and invested in this topic, but I think our listeners really want to hear from you. And as the chairman, what perspective can you offer to us?
I think the first thing that you have to do when you talk about the Department of Veterans Affairs and realize that they are the second largest agency in the federal government with about 330,000 employees, a budget of almost $150 billion a year. Most of those employees are doing outstanding work, and I think anybody that has been involved with the VA system over the years, especially those Vietnam veterans that came back and were not given the respect that they were due when they arrived back in the United States, knew that the VA was not a place that they would go to for their health care. But today, the story is much better for the health care that they receive, but you said a word, and that word was disability backlog and the claims that are out there. And that's got to be one of the biggest things that VA is grappling with right now, is getting a handle on the challenge that it has been facing them for years. It has been growing for a considerable amount of time. VA has now started chipping away at the backlog of disability claims. Those that are called backlogged are over 125 days, and that number right now, according to VA, stands at 400,000 cases. I would say that is VA's number of 400,000 cases, but if you talk to the veterans, they're going to tell you that many of those cases that VA claims that they have adjudicated are still backlogged as it relates to the veteran, because they've had to go to the Veterans Court of Appeals. There are provisional claims that are going to have to be re-adjudicated. So VA is trying to solve the problem, but they're not making the progress that they really need to make.
Yes, there were a couple of illnesses that were added and as a something that a veteran could apply for and receive. What were those driving factors of the sharp spike that the VA experienced a few years ago?
Well, what's interesting, Scott, is that VA will continue to say that by giving presumption for Agent Orange illness, 3 different diseases that they are now saying that they are attributable to exposure to Agent Orange, VA will say that that is the reason that the backlog spiked. Then they will also claim that, well, there are more disability claims coming in and they're more complex. I actually found testimony from a 1995 budget hearing where the VA said the exact same thing. There were more claims and there were more complex claims that were coming in. And so, they're running out of excuses as to why the number has spiked. Granted, it was the right thing for the Secretary to do, to grant those presumptive positions for veterans that were exposed to Agent Orange. However, they need to quit using that as an excuse. I think the main problem that exists out there is how they manage their resources.
Yes.
And until they start figuring out that they need to get rid of the people that aren't doing the job appropriately, and bear in mind, as I said before, the vast majority of folks are doing the right thing, but it doesn't take many to absolutely spoil the whole reputation of the department.
Well, I don't presume that you've been listening to the show all the way from Florida this morning, but we've had a theme this morning that's developed of a lack of accountability from the administration. I had our colleague Steve Scalise on from Louisiana. I had fellow Virginian Frank Wolf on. Steve and I were talking about the lack of accountability within the administration for really holding back the tremendous job-creating potential we have with coastal Virginia energy here. We could help so many of these 13,000 service members who transition out of the service right here in Hampton Roads into good-paying jobs, helping us develop offshore energy. We can't move forward simply because of the administration. Frank and I talked about and walked through the important work with respect to Benghazi. And here you are as a chairman of the Veterans Committee, just making clear about the lack of accountability within the VA for really sharply reducing the level of claims there. Where do these demographic trends take us over the next 10, 20, 30, even 40 years? What will we see in terms of the workload at the VA looking forward?
The VA workload is going to continue to increase. Without question, mental health and post-traumatic stress are 2 very important issues that the VA has to be focused on, and I've been saying it as loudly as I could over the last couple of years. They are not prepared for the surge of returning warfighters from Afghanistan entering into the system, and unfortunately, we are seeing suicides at a rate of about 22 a day of veterans of all conflicts now from World War II to date, and that number's been pretty much static over the last decade. And instead of seeing that number go down, it has either stayed flat or it has increased. And we have to find a way for our veterans to be treated how they want to be treated and where they want to be treated. The old model of VA forcing veterans to go where they want them to go, and in particular to facilities that belong to VA, is an outmoded model. They need to be able to go out into the system and be able to get health care as close to home as they possibly could. Now, unfortunately, we will get a lot of pushback from the veteran service organizations because they say that that's the first step at dismantling the VA system, and that is not at all what we are trying to do, is to crush a system that's providing services for veterans. But bear in mind, we are supposed to be treating the veterans first, not taking care of the VA system.
Yes, sir.
And unfortunately, that's what has happened over a number of years. There's been a 40% budget increase, the Department of Veterans Affairs, over the last number of years, and they have gotten every dollar, they've gotten every person they've asked for, and every piece of equipment they've asked for. And so, they can't turn to Congress and say, you haven't given us what we've asked for, because you, as a member of Congress, have continued to do that, and other members in the Virginia delegation. We have all worked together in a bipartisan fashion
Yes.
to make sure that veterans are not used as political pawns in the process that takes place on Capitol Hill.
Well, that is a bright light of bipartisanship on this matter. I've said this before, that when I'm on the way home from Washington, more often than I would like, I end up at Arlington because of the nature of the commands that are in our district, and in yours as well. And, I'm going to a service with a family, and there are no Democratic tombstones in Arlington. There are no Republican tombstones in Arlington. And some of these young men and women truly had never even gotten to the point of really sorting out, where they were politically. It is not a partisan matter. I appreciate your leadership on these matters, and I share your view that we need to allow our veterans to get care closer to home. I've heard so many have asked me for this, and I know you're leading on that, and I appreciate it. We'll be back in just a minute with Congressman Jeff Miller, the chairman of the Veteran Affairs Committee in the House of Representatives. I'm Scott Rigell. I'm your guest host this morning for the John Fredricks Show at 7:23 a.m. Good morning. It's 9:25 a.m. I'm Scott Rigell. I'm your guest host this morning for the John Fredricks Show. Delighted to have our special guest this morning, Chairman Jeff Miller. The reason I call him chairman is because he is the chairman of the House Committee on Veteran Affairs. He also serves on the House Armed Services Committee with me and our other friends here, Rob Whitman, and our good friend Randy Forbes, fine leaders in our community. He's also on the Permanent Select Committee for Intelligence. Now, when we were on that short break there, we received a question via email, and Esmel, at some point you'll get this here to me, and I'll ask the chairman on that. But while we're waiting for this question, let me ask you this, Jeff. I am so focused on helping our conference and the House, and of course the Senate as well, break through this gridlock that we've got here with respect to continuing resolutions. As a House Armed Services member, could you just walk us through your perspective on this and the impact that these continued reliance upon them has on our military?
We have to have an aura of sustainability and the ability to project out for our military, not just a couple of months, but years in advance. And these stop-start continuing resolutions that we're doing right now does not help them at all, because it doesn't give them the ability to project as far as they need, especially when you deal with the contractors that are out there trying to do their job as well. And unfortunately, it is hollowing out the issue that a lot of folks talk about right now is sequester. And that's something that Paul Ryan, chairman of our budget committee, is trying to deal with on the Hill. But it's not the way that we're supposed to be doing business. We should be passing appropriation bills in a timely fashion. That's the way it's been done for years, and unfortunately the Senate has basically locked down and not passed any appropriation bills. And unfortunately, our Milcon VA bill, the defense appropriation bills, have not been passed. And in years past, we've been able to get them off the table.
Yes.
And not get caught up in this CR merry-go-round that's been going on. So it's detrimental to the folks at home and to the warfighter when you have these fits of stops and starts with continuing resolution.
This is such a deep concern for you and for me, and we've got to break through this and get back on regular order. It's really something that I've not really experienced in the 3 years that I've served. Our friend Frank Wolf spoke to this as well. Let me ask you, how can a member of Congress, for a veteran who's out there today hearing this and may have a claim or some problem like that, what can a congressional office do for a veteran who's having difficulty getting something through the VA?
Well, veterans are a hardy bunch, and they usually try to go through the process on their own. And it's very, very difficult. Even I, as chairman of the committee, find the paperwork that they have to deal with and some of the backup material that they have to provide for a disability claim burdensome. However, when they finally reach the end of their rope, they will turn to a member of Congress, and that's usually when they're pretty angry because they've been waiting sometimes 1 and 2 years for an answer out of VA. What a lot of veterans don't know is each of us have a member of our staff in our district offices that's pretty much tasked with handling VA claims. And while we don't rate the claims, the Department of Veterans Affairs that actually does that, we do have the ability to inquire on a veteran's behalf, and sometimes it makes a difference.
Yes.
And you know, they have now started a process of putting veterans in different lanes to move the process faster. I don't think that's going to work because I still think they have a management issue. The mid-level management at the Department of Veterans Affairs has grown more than any other part of the department. They really need to grow the downstream line, the folks that are on the front line, not the middle management and the upper management. But unfortunately, as things go, that's the way it's been happening. But you know, contact a member of Congress's office earlier in the process. Now, of course, all the veteran service organizations have veteran service officers that help you fill out your claim, and that's an important help. But, you know, don't feel like a member of Congress is not willing to take up your cause and get some answers for you.
That's right, and indeed we are. If you're listening today, you're a veteran, you need help, please reach out to us at rigell.house.gov, rigell.house.gov. It's rigell.house.gov. Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show today, and we look forward to having you in the district. And on a lighter note, I look forward to taking you up to the Eastern Shore. There are plenty of turkeys up there. Maybe we can get out there at really early, watch the sun come up, and maybe bring one home. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Nothing else, seeing the sunrise is the best thing.
There you go. You're absolutely right. Thanks again. I'm